Hello, I'm Colin Green, and you are listening to Spike Pit. They walked in single file. The entrance to the path was like a sort of arch leading into a gloomy tunnel made by two great trees that leant together, too old and strangled with ivy and hung with lichen to bear more than a few blackened leaves. The path itself was narrow and wound in and out among the trunks. Soon the light at the gate was like a little bright hole far behind, and the quiet was so deep that their feet seemed to thump along while all the trees leaned over them and listened. As their eyes became used to the dimness, they could see a little way to either side in a short, darkened green glimmer. Occasionally a slender beam of sun that had the luck to slip in through some opening in the leaves far above, and still more luck in not being caught in the tangled boughs and matted twigs beneath, stabbed down thin and bright before them. But this was seldom, and it soon ceased altogether. So there you go, a little reading from The Hobbit, Chapter 8, Flies and Spiders. I picked that out because we've been playing There and Back Again. It's by Ray Otis. The game that he's come up with, it's a 2-page role-playing game. It's got some definite sort of dungeon world DNA. I think tiny dungeons, he said. He's talked a little bit about it and mentions it in Plundergrounds. Anyway, check it out. What we need to establish first of all is everybody here somewhat of a fan of Tolkien or is at least familiar with The Hobbit?
I'm halfway through The Hobbit.
Mm-hmm. No, I love it.
Yeah. Book.
Amazing.
Yeah, okay, cool.
I only read them about 70 times probably.
We sat down to play. It went really well. Character generation was relatively fast. I think it is really simple and it should have been a lot faster. It took us 20-25 minutes. I reckon you could do it in 10. Take a character concept based on just 2 words like strange wizard or hobbit sheriff, for instance, and then that will conjure a picture in your mind and you go from there. You could just start with an image if that's how you work. I'll probably suggest that next time because I'm playing with some youngsters. We did have a little bit of toing and froing about, can you have more than 2 words and can it be 2 phrases? And yeah, so a couple of my players missed the point a little bit. Moving on from that, you use your 2 main stats are toughness and fate, abbreviated to T and F. And toughness is basically how much abuse you can take. Fate is, you can think of it in different ways. You can think of it as like luck or heart or the will of the gods. It's a resource that you call upon in dire situations. You start out with a base 3 in toughness and 2 in fate, and then you've got an additional 5 points to spend between the 2. Bearing in mind your character concept, you want to pick things that are going to kind of reflect that concept. I gave the example that an elf being a little bit more magical and a bit sort of perhaps fairy tale are going to maybe tend towards fate a little bit more, whereas somebody like an outdoorsy ranger type who spends a lot of time alone, maybe they're slightly jaded, they're going to be more of a self-reliant type of character and perhaps a little bit tougher, or maybe tough in the way that hobbits are sometimes perceived as being tough. They're quite resilient characters. So that's toughness and fate. You've only got a fairly simple decision to make there. During an adventure, you'll lose toughness from, like I said, taking abuse or wounds, or I perceive that as mental damage as well. And you spend fate to get out of sticky situations or do magical things, because magic relies on fate. Fate is the fuel of the arcane. These resources, if you like, are regained by taking a rest in a safe place. Ray's calling this a haven. If you do take a long rest in a haven, your toughness and fate return to their starting values. The definition of a long rest is whatever you feel appropriate for the narrative, really. It's not specified. I think that's the sort of thing that will kind of be obvious in play. However, you can't ever go above your starting stats except through the process of advancement, or maybe some kind of enchantment, but not by resting. Firstly, it is not D&D. So the main thing to think is, this is not D&D with the Hobbit slapped on. What we're going to try and do is recreate somewhat of the feel of basically a tale of adventure in J.R.R. Tolkien's Wilderlands. Ray has kind of highlighted the fact anybody can be a wizard with the right knowledge. Trolls turn to stone in the sunlight. Animals or magical objects can speak. Elves aren't always nice. And the wild is full of terrible creatures like goblins, giant spiders and even dragons.
Okay, I'll avoid the dragons.
Next, you have to choose your skills and traits. You get to choose 2 traits. Now, the traits are as follows. You've got rhyming, riddling, fighting, foraging, sneaking, crafting, carousing and magic. Pick any 2 of those, and then there are skills in subsets to each of the traits. So, for example, you've got rhyming, and then under rhyming, which is the trait, you've got skills as follows: singing, playing an instrument, reciting poetry, telling stories. So you get to pick 3 total skills across your 2 traits. Some other skills, take the carousing trait. Under carousing, you've got drinking, cooking and eating, charming and haggling. Looking at a sample character, we've got Forzo, the Hobbit sheriff, with his toughness 6 and his fate 4. He's got the carousing trait with a drinking skill, and he's got the foraging trait with scouting and shooting. Carousing and foraging, they're your traits. Drinking, scouting and shooting, they're your skills. The relevance of these will become clear when I talk about advantages and disadvantages and the dice roll. It is worth noting that the magic trait, there is a note that suggests that you can create other skills through negotiation with the GM. In generating characters, I didn't find the skills and traits to cause much problem with the players. We had a little bit of a misunderstanding with my eldest son, who thought I'd meant for each trait you got to pick 3 skills. He didn't realise you had only 3 skills in total to divide between the 2 traits. But other than that, I think people found the whole skills and trait system quite interesting and a bit of a departure from the norm. It was interesting to see that people did kind of cooperate as a group and try and go for different abilities. There wasn't the predictable everybody going for hand-to-hand martial combat, and I didn't really notice the classic D&D characters being recreated. I did have a little talk at the beginning saying to leave your D&D ideas at the door, try and embrace the spirit of the Hobbit. I did suggest that it wasn't going to be really a game about killing things and taking their stuff, because this is like not a kill things and take their stuff game. That's basically it. No, it's this idea of an adventure. During character generation, it did become apparent that the players had taken this on board and were keen to come up with some quite different concepts, such as a Hobbit teller of tales, a dwarf haggler. We had a soldier on a sort of a... he was called Albrecht the Wanderer. He was on a mission to kind of scout the lands for his lord. And then we had an old elven wizard who was played by my youngest son. Yeah, we'll come on to magic. As for rolling the dice, when you try something risky or complicated, or whenever the GM tells you to, you grab 2d6. Magic, you spend 1 fate point if you're using a magic trait, and then you establish whether there's disadvantage or advantage. If you have a significant advantage, you grab another d6. If you have a significant disadvantage, you drop a d6. Having a skill is an advantage, and not having a trait is a disadvantage. So if you get into a melee, or say there's some argy-bargy, you need the fighting trait to be able to roll your 2 dice, because you will be down to 1 dice for not having the trait. You've got fighting, 2 dice. If you are in some sort of bar brawl and you've got the brawling skill, then that's advantage, and you pick up a dice for a total of 3. Pretty simple stuff, I hear you say. And that's because it is. You're only using d6. Very likely you're never going to roll more than 3, and you're never rolling less than 1. A 5 or a 6 is a success. Simple as that. Now, you can spend fate to add an extra die, and it's a way for you to get more than 3d6 on your roll. Now, regardless of the number of dice you roll, if they all end up as 1s, that's a blunder. Even if it's just 1 dice. If something really bad happens, the GM says, what? Note that you may spend fate to try and roll your way out of a blunder. After you've rolled, that's not good. You can spend some fate, try and get the Lady Luck to shine upon you and get you out of trouble. This is the main mechanism of the game in terms of random factors and combining the advantage disadvantage concept with the skills and traits. And in play, we found everybody needs a little bit of time to maybe appreciate and get a handle on what their traits and skills mean, get a feel for the type of things that you can do with them. We're using the Tolkien-ish and Hobbit-like stories and tales to kind of inform us when making those decisions. You know, what does Tolkien like carousing look like? What does Tolkien style or Hobbit combat look like? We sort of fell into that a little bit of a almost meta-like discussion during play. Passages of the Hobbit and quotes maybe would come out, and we're going to try and capture a little bit of that.
Quite bardish.
A bit bardish.
The dwarves always sing in the books.
Exactly. Well, they virtually everybody at some stage or other sings. All the main players, the elves sing, the goblins sing, don't they? The dwarves sing.
Dad, you haven't mentioned smoking the pipes yet.
Oh yeah, well that's another thing. Yeah. The take courage move is a kind of a special thing that Ray has included in the rules to get the Hobbit-like sing-song, reciting a verse, telling a story type of feel that you get in the fiction. Anytime that the characters are in a dangerous place or they're feeling down and in the dumps, in the dark, they can make a rhyming roll. It's probably a good idea to get the person with the most talent in this area to make the roll, because on a success, each player gets to choose a fate point or 2 hit points. It is noted that the GM may offer other choices. The best subjects for rhyming are natural wonders, bountiful feasts, humorous anecdotes, and tragic tales of lost love or great sacrifices. In our session, whilst the party was making camp in a glade on their way through Mirkwood, the mood was quite low. I've described the feelings of claustrophobia and kind of despair and the general dim and dingy vibe. At this point, Arfed decided that his Hobbit tale teller would, over their meal, discuss these great centenary feasts in the Shire, and everybody got involved in creating a bit of fiction describing these extravagant feasts. And it was interesting, even the youngest players were chipping in and expanding the story, even though Arfed was the actual tale teller. As players, we were all sort of suggesting ways that the tale could be expanded, and making little jokes about the size of the judges and expanding waistlines, etc. It really did capture that storytelling, Tolkien-like vibe, and it did in fact take the group of players who were starting to get a little bit tense going on this journey through Mirkwood. It did actually kind of really, in real life, raise the mood. Havens and the Wild is the next section. Havens are pretty self-explanatory. They're places of quiet and rest, protected, maybe with a good established boundary. This is how you restore and heal. You get your toughness, you recover your fate, or you grow your character through advancement. The Wild is basically everything outside of the Havens. It's the perilous places, the untamed lands, or areas that have been reclaimed by chaotic and evil forces. In the session we played, this rule of the Havens didn't really come into force as a mechanism for healing, as the characters had not suffered on their journey. They started out in Lake Town, which would have been a haven. They travelled with a caravan up to the Elven King's halls on the eastern edge of Mirkwood. It was quite funny. I was trying to do like a bit of a clash of cultures type of idea, because we had a dwarf in the party and the elves in the Elf King's halls were typically suspicious. It didn't help that he decided to go wandering around the halls, poking his nose in, and was apprehended by the guards and taken to the head of the watch, and had some awkward questions to answer. He was a dwarven haggler. He had the carousing trait, and he also had the charming skill, and was able to talk himself out of a little bit of a sticky situation. Beat structure wise, I found the ups and downs of going from haven to wild to haven to wild gave quite a nice sort of rhythm to the game. Very simple, but quite effective. Friends and retainers or other extra characters can join the party, termed as extras. They have 1 to 3 different skills and may be controlled by anyone in the group. If an extra undertakes a task on their own, at which they're skilled, they get a die. No advantage or disadvantage applies, and if they try something without a skill, the GM decides if they're successful or not. In playing role-playing games, it's all too easy to get bogged down with lots of NPCs and kind of hangers-on, hirelings and everything else. And whilst it is fun, if you want things to move along at a good pace, I think a little bit of simplicity and brevity in the rules surrounding this stuff is a good thing. So for me, whilst kind of reserved judgment, it does look like it'll work fine. There's also rules for company or party resources, and it's almost a usage die idea. So it's a d6 set to a 2 to start with, and you have to roll equal to or under to successfully make a purchase or get hold of something. It's not intended for trifling or insignificant purchases. It's supposed to be kind of like your more significant, larger ticket items, or possibly a good quantity of smaller to medium things, perhaps associated with getting kitted out in general for perhaps a fairly lengthy overland journey. You might just make the one roll to provision the trip, and if you fail, you need to come up with a plan B. Or maybe, I was thinking, you could think you've got the resources, but then reveal to the players later that something has gone wrong. You know, some of the food is spoiled, or there's an accident and it's lost. So you could kind of like delay the effects of the failed roll. The other thing you can do is when the party scores some loot or gets paid for a job or whatever, you can take that resource die number, so starting at a 2 you can raise it to a 3, or likewise they could start at a 2, get all fitted out for their first big journey and then drop their resources down to a 1. Advancement. This happens and can only happen in the safety of the comparative safety of a haven. Characters get 1 XP each time they add to the lore of the world with rhyming, secure a treasure, or encounter something dangerous in the wild, and overcome or avoid it. This is another way of getting a little bit more of that Tolkien Hobbit flavour going, as well as a way to allow the characters to, progress with their skills and their traits, improve their abilities, because when you get 5 XP, you can permanently add +1 to your max hit points, or you can get 2 fate points. The fate is maxed at 6. You can also get a new skill area, a max of 4 of those, or you can get a trait from a skill area you already have. And then closing out with some Games Master advice. It explains that, as the Games Master, you're playing the world and everything in it. When a character tries something dangerous or difficult, you call for the roll. You don't roll for easy stuff, and you don't roll for impossible stuff. Easy stuff just happens, impossible stuff doesn't happen. An easy magic action still costs 1 fate, even if no roll is required. You're still doing the magic, but it's easy, doesn't require the roll. And then after the roll, you've got to move that fiction on. Don't allow the old sort of second attempt, third attempt, somebody else has a go. In practice, the session that went along, there was no problem. I just kept thinking, as I'm asking for the roll, I keep it in the front of my mind. If this is failed, what's going to happen? Or if I can't immediately think of what's going to happen, I just remind myself that something's got to happen. And if I really strike out, I kind of source the table and say, okay, that's a failed. What do we think that's going to look like? In the heat of the moment, and like we was doing an encounter with the spiders in Mirkwood, the Attercops. Yeah, there was a moment where everybody was all pitching in ideas for a failed roll. When I sat down to play the session, I just didn't anticipate that was going to happen. It really surprised me. I think it surprised everybody else as well. Now, the other advice that Ray offers is the fail forward idea, granting a minimum success but with a serious drawback or a complication. Reason for this is you don't want that failure to kind of cut off what's going on. The classic is in investigations where somebody doesn't find something and the trail just goes cold, or the action just goes flat. Failing forward is a really good way around that. Ray also advises that in the all ones blunder case, push hard with that. It is a proper bad fail, cause collateral damage, separate the party, pin them down, burn up a resource, have like a magical backlash or like miscast type idea, or have a magic item do something unhelpful, maybe take on a mind of its own. He encourages you to think dangerously. There's also this idea that a blunder advances a sort of overarching agenda. You think what that represents, so that is it could be, say, like the villain's plot, and each time the group makes the blunder, you've got steps in the villain's plan that, unbeknownst or maybe known to the players, are advancing. You could sort of foreshadow stuff or hint at bad things happening, just flavourful little cut scenes or something like that, or you start talking about ill omens, whatever you want. Create that sense of impending doom with the players. You want to make those blunders count. And last of all, we've got magic items. They can be minor, which are described as wondrous, or major, which are described as magic. Wondrous items often carry names and have subtle passive effects, e.g. glow near evil creatures. Major magic items confer a magic skill, like invisibility. Characters must spend a fate to use or activate them, and any item can be lost, broken, discharged or tainted, of course. Some have a will of their own. I believe that's probably a reference to The Ring. I like the idea of these wondrous, kind of curious items, maybe quite often elven artefacts that are bestowed upon the party as little boons or favours for doing good deeds. And then you've got these major magic items that are obviously going to be a lot rarer, have some sort of reputation. It's the sort of item you go on a quest for. Is probably either well lost or owned by somebody else who's unlikely to want to give it up. Rules wise then, that's about it. I'd just like to express my thanks to Ray for allowing us to get involved with this first play of his new game. It was very enjoyable. I think everybody was aware of the fact that they were trying out something new, and all being Hobbit-y fans got into the spirit of things. There was no criticism of anything that we did. It was all a very positive experience, and I think everybody had fun. I think one of the things that was said is, coming from D&D and OSR games, it is quite a change of direction, or you've got to get your head in a different place. You know, that has the potential to be jarring, but maybe in a good way. It kind of jars you out of your comfort zone. It certainly made me raise my game as a GM. I think criticism of these type of maybe more narrative games is unfair. I think if you can pull off this type of game, you're probably a half decent GM, because you've got to think on your feet, you've got to make good judgments, and from the player's point of view, you need to be a good player. You need to have faith in the rulings of your referee. There's really no room for the adversarial style of play. That suits me fine. We did create what I think was a pretty Tolkien flavoured evening of tale telling and adventure. That's what we set out to do. We've been there, and we're not quite back again.
Hey Colin, great episode. I really enjoyed the part you were saying how, when you're starting the new game, hey guys, listen, this isn't D&D. This is we're trying something new, so try and think outside the box. I think that's a great idea. I want to try Advanced Fighting Fantasy at some point. I haven't had a chance, and I think that'll be one of the things I incorporate. Hey, listen, I really enjoy your accent and your voice, Colin. I honestly think you should narrate some audiobooks or something, man. You're so easy to listen to. I enjoy it.
It's funny you should say that, but I'm quite enjoying doing a few little readings on my episodes. I don't know how well they're going down. A few people have commented, funnily enough, that they quite enjoy them, and that's quite encouraging.
It's Robert, DM Dad here. I'm really excited that you did a cast on There and Back Again, because I've been looking for a system that I can use for this Hobbits on Bikes thing that we talked about a long time ago, and it sounds like this could be the way to go in terms of the mechanics I want to use behind that. So it was great to hear you talk about that. It sounds like the one for me.
There and Back Again, we had a great session with that. I kind of plucked up the courage to try a new system and throw it out to the group, and I'm glad I did, because The Hobbit is so ingrained in my life experience. It's always there in the back of my mind. I don't know, it's pretty much a part of me now. I'm glad I'm actually playing in that world.
They wouldn't have been resting loaded up, so none of the stuff would be.
It's going, that's my pony. What do you want about let him go? Bill, go
Shut
get
your
my
mouth,
pony.
one.
I'd put a hand on the boy's
Oh, he's
shoulder
gone back to
and just
normal.
say,
He's
ain't
like,
no one
"What-
going into them woods.
That's mad
No one's
for
going
you.
into them woods.
but Father said to get his pony. How will we get his goods to the
I'll
market?
be looking down at his dad. He ain't going nowhere, is he? What happened the last time someone went in the woods? I'll be looking down at him again.
Oh no,
That's mad.
I'm just saying, call their names.
Bill, that's Bill the pony.
Megalaminty.
Bill, and he goes off to like the edge of the clearing where you can see there's
Same one.
sort of
Is that,
some vaguely trampled undergrowth and whatnot.
what are you looking at?
I'll pick
There
up
was
a
the
bag
pony in
of
the
horse
face of
feed
the
and I'll be
ring.
shaking that, like,
Yeah.
you know, trying to sort of entice them back out, but I ain't going into their woods again.
Okay, so you're gonna grab the horse feed and try and entice it back.
It's like
As you do this, you notice that one of the ponies seems to have it comes wandering back down the path. So it seems it probably wasn't that far away and has heard you and has come back to the fold and is noshing at the food bag, but no sign of the other one.
oh god. Alright.
No?
Well, let's see how Ricky's Albrecht's food shaking and
What about
luring.
cooking up some food, some smells? Have they good
Good
sense
idea,
of
lad.
smell,
Horses don't eat
these
hot.
ponies?
Looking at
but they-
him, look at the last pack of sausages and thinking, no mate.
Perhaps a
No, it's crispy
pipe,
bacon.
a pipe full of old Toby.
Luca.
I just don't put a bucket of water on the cooking fire to say
Nice
we're getting
crispy
ready to
bacon.
leave.
Share one for you
Perhaps
too,
we
Mr.
should cook
Bailey.
up some more breakfast,
Some
just in
breakfast.
case.
You probably
Let's get
haven't.
a fire
I've started
going.
putting half of my
You probably
rations
haven't
aside
stopped,
now
yeah.
instead of a fifth.
Yeah,
Get up some bacon.
And I'm doing it outside the Hobbit as well.
yeah,
I'll
yeah.
stoke up the fire then, get some
Excellent.
tomatoes
Nice
on.
crispy bacon.
Some
Get
nice
some
crispy
tomatoes on.
bacon.
They must
See,
be attractive. They
Trumpy,
must
Mr.
have a good
Birdie.
sense of smell.
Potatoes.
Put it out, you fools. Put it out.
You see a figure making its way through the bushes, kind of
Hey, lovers.
bent over in the weather, making some haste back towards the tree.
He's not seen me in
A
the.
cloaked sort of figure
I don't like cloaked figures because it
doesn't
know who
appear
you
to be paying any attention to you.
are. Well, I tell you that, a cloaked
Well, I'll
figure.
raise an eyebrow. I'll look at the other two, and if I haven't seen it, I'll just say, "Stay here, stay by the fire, don't leave the path." And I'll maybe put my cloak around the young lad if he hasn't got anything suitable for this sort of weather.
Yeah, your cloak's wringing wet, but you can do that. He's got a cloak, but the main problem is that your stuff's basically wet through. Yeah.
Well, I'll just assume that a second layer might.
It does.
Yeah.
Because it's wool.
And I'll shrug my shield and I'll keep my sword sheathed for now, but I'll keep low and
Head in the direction
I'll
of that
head
guy.
towards the tree, yeah, and wait till he's inside. So I know that one. Well, I don't obviously know that he can't get out the other side, but I know that the rest of my crew are on the inside, so to speak. So I'll follow up behind. And once he's there, I'll sort of sit by the entrance and listen.
Yeah. You lot can hear like the sounds of something coming up the passageway,
Hey, you fools.
and you hear like a. Is that what you're doing? You're hiding.
No, basically, I whisper.
I don't
Hey,
think
you
there's much
fools.
room to hide, is it?
And you duck about and you look for somewhere to hide, but before you can really have done anything, this kind of bedraggled looking head kind of pops up through the thing, and he's like, "Oi, what's all this?
I just.
Wait, state your business. What are you doing in my house?
Calm down, sir.
Calm down?
Calm down.
Trespassing in a man's home. What's wrong with you?"
We are just looking for some short rest and shelter from the conditions outside.
Well, I thank you to look somewhere else. This is my shelter. And you needn't think you'll be getting any food or shelter off of me. Probably servants of the necromancer, I'd imagine.
We do not know what
And
necromancy
he's like-
you talk of.
Poking a spear towards the
How
wizard.
dare you speak that name?
I speak what names I like in my house. You speak your name. And he's got like this spear that you can see is seen better days. It's kind of not well maintained, and he's kind of sort of half-heartedly poking it in your direction.
And who are we in the presence of here, Mr.
I don't need a name. I know who I am, but I don't know who you are.
State
Well
your
then.
name now.
I told you, I don't need a name. I need your name. You don't need my name. I already know who I am.
Galatian Lightbringer.
Yeah. Don't look like you're bringing much light here. What about you, dwarf?
I don't need a name. I know my own name. And you don't need to know it.
And with that, he kind of edges in through the hole and kind of like moves round towards like the right, you know, comes into the entrance. And you notice, as soon as he starts moving, there's like this rank smell of unwashed person. You can see he's an older guy. He's quite wiry. He's got raggy clothing.
Almost as old as me.
Even though he's got this limp, wet cloak on, you can see he's got gnarly, bony arms, and you can see all his veins and everything. And you do notice that he's got like these pretty savage scars around his wrists and his ankles, and he's got like this just insane kind of beard.
I see you look at me when you was going to say that, but I've trimmed my beard.
Oh yeah, I've only just noticed your beard's like...
I was looking for some inspiration, and I felt it fell on
Last week.
barren ground, and
Radagast.
he's got like this unkempt massive beard and like crazy eyebrows, and the hair is.
Does he have like a weird hat? This guy's very weird.
He hasn't got a hat really. He's just got like his hair is kind of a bit sort of matted, and
So no, it's
he's
not
got
bad, I guess.
twigs and bits of leaf in it. Obviously,
No
he's come
colours.
out of the storm, but you know,
Nah, I know it won't.
crawling in and out of this place. You know, he's going to get dirt on him and everything. But he seems not aware of any of this, and he's just like scowling at you.
What are you gonna do? Kick us out?
Yeah,
Well, it is his house.
it's my house.
I shall hold up my hands and calm down, everybody. I'm sure there's a reasonable negotiation we can make here. Perhaps we could give you something for your time and your
Give him
hospitality.
Slap my ear.
Got any food, Halfling? Got any food, have you?
Ha!
And he sort of like
that
he
sausage
turns round with that. He turns round his spear and he like prods you in the stomach and he says, "Whoa, you look well fed, don't ya? I'll have some of what you're having if you don't mind."
Well,
A favour for a favour.
I am more than happy to give you some of our food if
Oh,
you
yeah.
Oh,
can-
I'm more than happy too.
if you can give some shelter to my friends outside.
God, don't you talk a lot? God, dear. Where's his food? Let's have a chat. More of the food.
Right, okay. Well,
Leave nonsense.
I take it he's a human.
Yeah, he's well, yeah,
It's hard to
Or
tell.
was.
Yeah, it's a bit hard to tell. Yeah, no, he is clearly human, but yeah.
I'm still
he's-
waiting for your name.
And he sets off to, "Ah, dear, oh dear." And he just, thick as two short plates. He's like shuffled over to one side and said, "Now, where'd I put my spoon?" And he keeps glancing over to see it, yeah, and he's like he kind of like he grinds his teeth a bit, and he gets his spoon and he's like licking his spoon. That'll be nice. Oh, some nice food. Oh, halfling food will be nice. Ooh, lovely.
So I shall
Oh,
climb
I can
down.
feel my
Don't
mouth.
give him anything that you use a spoon.
My mouth is watering at the prospect of this lovely feast halfling's going to bring me.
So I shall climb down this tunnel
Okay.
Why did
Back
you call him a
outside.
hobbit?
and I shall go back to the group.
Yeah, I'm at
Yeah.
the entrance to it. I followed the bloke in.
Yeah, you're coming. Yeah, you come calling out, and you're sort of, whoa, sort of. There's the looming shadow of seriousness that is Albrecht shivering over the tunnel entrance.
Okay.
He sort of startles you. You weren't expecting to see him.
Yeah. Okay.
And you
After
notice
my shock.
you notice through the undergrowth behind him, you see Baldur kind of creeping, leading the ponies in the direction of this tree.
Okay, I shall gesture him over.
Yeah, and you see Boblin gesture
There's a very
to behind you, and
human here.
you can see that, yes, that Baldur has neglected to follow your instructions, and he's brought his boy and his ponies in the direction of this hut.
Okay.
Okay.
So is there any better shelter for the ponies outside or not? Around this tree?
Not really, but they don't seem to be all that fussed. They look like they're
Holding up quite well.
well, no, they look like they're some sort of mountain breed or something like that.
British ponies, they're used to a bit of weather.
Yeah, some of them sort of like them Welsh.
Ow.
You know them hardy like Shetland type of
Pony to do.
You know, they've got that longer hair and everything, and they stand out all through all weathers on the hill. Exmoor ponies and that.
I don't
Okay.
like more ponies.
Alright, well we'll tie him up in
Ittamore.
sort of secure him somewhere as safely as possible. Whilst I'll explain that there is somewhat a crazy old man whose habitat inside this hollow tree, but it is warm, and I think in the need of the desperation of the situation, I think we're going to have to take shelter to warm yourselves up and dry your clothes, and I've negotiated to give him some food in return for some shelter.
I say we stick him.
I
You're not
say
there
we
at the moment because
don't.
I'm outside, but
Okay.
I
I'll go outside.
shall get some food from the ponies. I assume are carrying it.
They are.
I shall pick out
Okay. Yeah.
Nothing that you
little
can
but
spoon.
sort of the nicer bits that I can sort of find that are not just biscuits and dry stuff, but not too much of it.
Okay. Yeah, your rations are some sort of fairly decent-ish stuff.
Emphasis on the word ration.
He picked up some fresh. It would appear that he's picked up some fresher stuff when he was at the Elven King's halls, and it looks like he might have been keeping that quiet. You find some nicer food,
Give him the less.
so some fish and that. You know.
I don't like
Kale.
green food.
Well, I'll get what I deem.
Nice.
Well, you more or less sniff it out. Do you know what I mean? In true halfling Hobbit style.
I'll get together what I deem is a sort of human portion of one meal, sort of thing.
Okay.
Not
Half as
half.
much as a half.
So yeah, half a Hobbit sort of
Hobbit on a
dinner.
diet.
Yeah. Okay.
And
On a mad diet.
yeah, and I say, well, follow me, and I shall lead us down the tunnel where you can dry off. But as I said, beware, the guy is he's
Weird.
been on his lonesome for some time and not too hospitable. So
That's probably like the equivalent of a full day's rations, probably there.
okay.
And
I'd take my cloak off the young lad. And I'm looking at this hole in the floor and thinking, I don't really fancy crawling through that.
okay.
So I'll usher the other two in and say, look, I'm going to make sure the ponies are settled, and I'm going to use my awesome fire going outside, and I'll be hunkering down there. I'm used to it on the road and that. I'm suffering a bit at the minute, but I'm confident once the fire's warmed me up a bit, I'll be okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not too keen on crawling into this thing. It sounds like it's a bit cramped in there as well. By the time there's 2 men, 3 men, a hobbit, a dwarf, and a 4th man, yeah. It doesn't sound like there's going to be a lot of room in there anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So I get a little blaze going, angle the old sheet against the wind,
Yeah.
and I'll wrap up in me cloak and maybe put some extra clothes on for me pack.
Yeah. Okay. I think your main trouble is going to be the ground, because it's like soaking wet and super cold. As fast as you're trying to warm up, the cold ground is drawing away the warmth from your person.
Well, I'll tough it out for a bit, obviously, until everybody's in, and then I'll have to crawl
Okay.
in. When I get bad, I'll have to crawl in and
Okay.
I'll ask someone to go out and keep an eye on the ponies, because the last thing I want to do is be losing them while we're tied up in the tree.
Okay.
I'll go and sit
I
out
don't
by
think
the
my
fire.
shield's going to fit through here either, is it? So that's going to have to stay outside.
It probably is too big. Yeah.
I'll have to pop that up.
I'll sit in the doorway, keeping an eye over the ponies, try and keep the fire going. Yeah, I'll keep a little
So
fire.
where are you? So you're trying to use this fire as well, but from within the door.
Well, every now and again, I'll just go out and stick a twig on it or something. Just keeping an eye out, because I'm a little bit in a better state than the other.
Yeah, your situation ain't much better. You're getting colder and colder by the second. So inside you've got
Fire.
this old
Fire. More
guy.
fire.
You're presenting him with this food, are you?
Yeah, so I go in
He's
first.
chatting to himself. You've noticed he's chatting away now. He's just talking about this, talking about his upcoming meal.
So I shall go in first. I say, my fine host,
who goes there?
it's me, Boblin.
Again.
Boblin? Boblin? Who the hell's Boblin?
That's me, sir.
Boblin, oh, hello, I'm Boblin. And he's just sort of dancing around, and he grabs up this sort of like he's got this. It looks like a bit of a gouge or some sort of improvised carving tool, and he starts tapping away. Oh, time for a bit of carving, and he does it. He's just like, you can hear this. You can all hear this bit of tapping. And he starts tapping away. Bobbling, bibbly, bobbly, bibbly, bobbling. You can see he don't get a lot of company. He's sort of almost ignoring you now, and as though he's sort of slightly forgotten that you're there.
I'll bring the others in while he's.
I mean, if you don't think of food, we'll
Okay.
just camp out for a while until the buns of
Bibbly,
food.
bobbly, bibbly. Light bringer. Hello, I'm Bobbling, the light bringer.
Now he's just mixing his stupid name.
That's stupid names. Yeah, so you come in, you've got this food, and
I won't give him the food until he asks for it.
no, it seems.
If he's forgotten about it, then I'll eat
Yeah,
it.
no, he sort of. He's kind of like, oh, what's that I smell? Oh, yeah. Food! Right, oh, that's why I got my spoon. I knew I had my spoon out for something. He comes over, right. Bibbly bobbling! Get cooking!
So I'll take him over to one side where he looks like he does his cooking then.
He's so
Well, he
weird.
does it over this fire here,
Alright, well,
in the centre.
I'll sort of, like I say, I'll try and distract him as much while the others come in. And I'll bring out
And
the
then he
food.
goes, oh, somebody's already been doing some cooking. And he pulls off the stick off the fire and he starts like chewing at this pretty rank looking meat. God, this ain't much good. Don't think much of this, cook. And he just starts sort of like prodding about in your bags and whatever it is you've bought in.
So I shall try and
smell?
I shall try and start preparing this food as a accomplished,
Yeah, he just interfered.
semi-accomplished chef.
Yeah. You get to try and prepare it, and he just keeps interfering and butting in with everything you're doing. But he don't seem too much of a threat or anything like that.
Well, like I say, I'll just try and keep his attention as much as possible to distract from my colleagues who are trying to dry out and warm up.
Yeah, you're getting definitely warmer.
These two idiots are just going to wear the fire.
Belgo's put a bit more wood on the fire, and Baldor's sitting there. He's just he just got a little wine skin, and he takes a few sips of his drink, and they're just sitting there. There's definitely a bit of an atmosphere between them. You're not convinced that Baldor's his right self. He's kind of slipped into a bit of a moany, grumbly mood.
Depression.
He slipped into a bit of a sort of depression perhaps. And you've got Belgor, just seems a bit distant and constantly thoughtful, and he's got like this amulet thing that he wears, and he's constantly like fiddling with it and toying with it. Meanwhile, in the entrance, Edwin,
Yeah.
you're starting to shiver now. Yeah, your teeth are chattering. You're very cold.
I shall go back into cave.
In the meantime, I am gonna say make a roll.
So you don't die.
2.
2. Yeah, you just you get colder and colder and colder, and you take another hit on your toughness. But at this point, you feel a little bit delirious. Feel like you maybe.
I did say that I headed in.
Oh yeah.
He was watching the ponies when I went in.
Yeah. You feel a bit delirious, and you can't really quite remember what you've done, except the next thing you know, you're crawling down the tunnel as if led by some sort of survival instinct to get somewhere warmer. You think you was dozing off with the warmth of the fire on your face, but then you just woke up and you was shivering uncontrollably, and then at one point you just stopped shivering, and you started to feel all right, and then you're just confused, and next thing you know you're back inside, and you lot are confronted by a pretty rough looking Albrecht who more or less comes into the shelter and passes out.
I should pull him in as he's climbing through, help him or drag him towards the fire and lay him down by the side of the fire, and
you can
make space.
Yeah, he's really cold. At any point, the other thing is, I forgot to mention, you can, if you roll these rolls and they go poorly, you can spend a fate point to throw another dice.
You did mention that before, actually.
I forgot to mention that. I'll probably, just because...
I've got 7 of them when I'm not wasting them away.
Yeah, I just... because we didn't get involved with it last week, and I thought I should probably re-emphasise that. Okay, so you're all back in there, and you're seeing to... Well,
I'm just making sure he's close enough to the fire to get the full benefit.
Yeah, I mean, by this point, by the time he comes in, obviously some time has passed, and you've sorted out you with some food, and he basically troughs that. He seems like he's not really concerned about you now, because he eats his food. He makes himself some brew with some leaves in and stuff, and basically just goes and crashes out on his leafy bed with his furs.
Teddy's feel.
Further to the there and back again, I really like what you said. Your closing remarks about the kind of game master and the kind of players that would make the best use of that system. I feel like in the OSR we talk a lot about these stripped down, rules light, rulings not rules types of systems, and one of the things that we kind of neglect to mention is what type of play style and what type of game master and what type of player and what type of relationship between game master and player that implies. And that, the reason that things like Pathfinder have so many defined mechanics is to stop both players and game masters cheating, for lack of a better word. But if everybody's on the same page and everybody wants to work together to have a good gaming experience, then you don't need all those extra mechanics.
And that, as they say, is a wrap for this pit stop episode. I want to say a big thanks to the folk who contributed to the episode. Also, a massive thanks goes out to the pit crew my patrons over on the Spike Pit Patreon, keeping me going and growing. Last but not least, I want to say a big thanks to you, the listener, for taking a bit of time out of your day to listen to old Spike Pit. Take care, and I'll catch you later.